So it's been a while since my last video, and I wanted to start 2025 by going through my workflow, and I want to make sure that I keep this video as concise as possible. I just want to show you my workflow and not what you should be aiming for. So this is purely what I do with my photos and not what you should be doing. So what you should be doing is actually play around with the software, with Lightroom Classic, and understanding what your workflow should be. The workflow for everyone will differ depending on the style of photography that you like, the style of shooting that you like, and also the kind of camera that you have, the resolution that you shoot at, and different aspects of your photography. So let's quickly start with my video. As I said, I want to start keeping my videos as concise as possible, as short as possible, and I just want to give you all the information that I can give you in a short amount of time. So I'm going to start off with just two examples. I will go through how I edit my photos, and I will go through two examples which I planned on shooting, and also I have a good idea on how to actually edit these. So the first image is actually this small island with this foreground, which is very prominent in the picture. And when I see a picture such as this, my first thought is black and white. So that is exactly what I'm going to be doing with this image. I think that the foreground will really pop out when converting this picture to black and white and editing it in a way that it balances out the background as well. So let's go ahead and go to the develop module. I'm going to immediately click on the black and white option right here. So what I like to do with a picture exactly as I start editing is go over the basic tab. It's purely basic, so it's a place where you can adjust your exposure, your highlights and shadows, and this gives you a kind of feel of where the image will go with your editing. So let's start immediately with the exposure. I think we can lower the exposure just slightly to bring out a bit more grays in the sky, because this seems like a gloomy kind of shot. And then I want to darken the overall blacks. We have to keep in mind that the blacks can be a bit too dark, for example in this particular area at the bottom left corner, and we can confirm that by clicking on this triangle icon, and it will show you where the blacks are clipping, so it will be too black. Let's put that back just a little bit. If we go back to the optimum amount right here, we can then decrease the shadows to darken the overall look of the image. I don't feel like there's too much to do with this image apart from making sure that the composition is correct. So I'm going to keep the same aspect ratio, and I want to put my subject, which is the island right here, on the first third at the top right corner. So if I press enter right here, I can see that the composition is slightly better. I can fix my crop to align the horizon correctly. And then what I want to do is first and foremost go to lens correction, and I'm going to remove chromatic aberration and also enable profile corrections. This will correct the image according to the lens that you are using. One small thing we can also do here is use a mask. I'm going to choose a linear gradient, drag and drop from the very top to cover most of my sky, and then I'm going to intersect that mask with a luminance range. And now that I have the luminance range right here, I can drag the dark parts away in order to remove this part of the foreground from my selection. Now we can adjust the overall color of this particular area. And to make this even more dramatic, I'm going to increase a bit of contrast right here. As you can see, I've increased the highlights in order to create more contrast between the foreground and the background. What we can also do is create another linear gradient, this time from the side, to cover this part of the sea, and I'm going to intersect once again that linear gradient with a luminance range, and I'm going just to click and drag the area over the sea, and as you can see I'm selecting just this part of the sea. And now I can reduce the exposure just slightly to create even more contrast with the sky, but I want to make sure that there's contrast within that particular area as well, because when I lowered the exposure, that particular area seems to have become a bit muddy as a look. So I'm going to make sure to have deeper blacks. As you can see, I'm lowering my blacks quite a bit, and then I'm going to increase my whites just a bit. Now we can also introduce a bit of texture and reduce clarity just slightly in order to compensate for that extra texture. If we increase clarity instead, you can see that it becomes a bit too busy. So let's go back to a lower clarity. So that's it right there. I feel like there's a really nice contrast between the foreground and the background, and also this part of the image, this foreground, gives the image a really nice abstract look, a really nice black and white abstract. I'm going to jump over to the next image. This is a shot that immediately in my eyes feels like I can just bring out the blue colors in the background and darken the foreground in a way to create a silhouette for these two guys right here. So I'm going to first apply the lens correction and chromatic aberration adjustments. I want to adjust my distortion just slightly in order to reintroduce a bit of the edges right here, because I lost them when the distortion was set to 100. And I'm going to go immediately to the crop tool, straighten my image first and foremost, and now immediately to basic adjustments. So what I will do is I will decrease the exposure slightly in order to bring out a bit of those blues in the sky. Then I'm going to reduce my shadows quite a bit, and I can reduce my blacks as well. Now as you can see, we still have some elements of sort of light on the skin, for example in the hair right here, and that's something that I don't mind. What I do mind is this particular part right here, where the seeds are showing and reflecting the sunlight. So what I can do here is either crop a bit upward to remove as much as possible from that part, and then I'm going to go over to the heel brush tool right here, and I'm going to paint over this particular section. And as you can see, we've removed quite a large chunk of that area. Now we can go again to the linear gradient, add a linear gradient right there, and if we reduce exposure and feather it out a bit more, there we have it. We've removed it completely. Now I'm going to focus on the background, and as I said in the beginning, the background is literally a good amount of blue tones, which will really shine when we bring them out as much as possible. What we can start with is we can increase the vibrance. You can immediately see that the colors pop out. We don't want to overdo this, so I'm going to go to the color mixer. I'm going to introduce a bit of blues in this aqua and blue range, and increase the saturation and also decrease the luminance. As you can see, the sky has gone from a bright blue or a bright white to a darker shade of blue. And then we're going to go to the blues. I'm going to move it slightly towards the aqua. As you can see, introduce more saturation and decrease the luminance as well. And here you can see what a difference this really little amount of editing has done to this image. I really like this image. It's one of my favorite images from my trip to Switzerland, and you can really see that when you plan your edits, you can really do a lot with very minimal editing. Similar to this is the other shot. You can see if we compare both shots to each other, you can see that with very minimal editing, we brought out the foreground and made it distinct from the background, and we have a lot of contrast, which creates a really nice and really dramatic looking shot. This would really go well framed with a white border. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope that my workflow gives you some ideas for your style of editing. As I said in the beginning of the video, making sure to practice and try out different kinds of editing will create your own workflow. Creating your own workflows will lead to a much easier editing experience. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.